Here are some selected verses. He marked the marshland, placed in it carp and fish. He marked the cane thicket, placed in it reeds and grain reeds. And Belulu, the inspector of canals, he placed in charge of the marshlands. Him who set nets so no fish escapes, whose trap no escapes, whose snare no bird escapes, the son of a god, who loves fish and Ki placed in charge of fish and birds. And Kimju, the one of the ditch and dike, and Ki placed in charge of ditch and dike. Him whose mold directs color, the brickmaker of the land, and Ki placed in charge of mold and brick. The poem lists other achievements of Enki, including the purification of the waters of the Tigris River, and the joining by canal of the Tigris and Euphrates. His house by the watery bank adjoined a wharf at which redrafts and boats could anchor, and from which they could sail off. Appropriately, the house was named the Abzu House of the Deep. Enki's sacred precinct in Nibiru was known by this name for millennia thereafter. No doubt Enki and his landing party explored the lands around Nibiru, but he appears to have preferred traveling by water. The marshland, he said in one of the texts, is my favorite spot. It stretches out its arms to me. In other texts, Enki described sailing in the marshlands in his boat, named Magur, literally boat, to turn about in, namely, a touring boat. He tells how his crewmen drew on the oars in unison, how they used to sing sweet songs, causing the river to rejoice. At such times, he confided, sacred songs and spells filled my watery deep. Even such a minor detail as the name of the captain of Enki's boat is recorded. The Sumerian king lists indicate that Enki and his first group of Nephilim remained alone on Earth for quite a while. 8 Shars 28,800 years passed before the second commander or settlement chief was named. Interesting light is shed on the subject as we examine the astronomical evidence. Scholars have been puzzled by the apparent Sumerian confusion regarding which one of the 12 zodiacal houses was associated with Enki. The sign of the fish goat, which stood for the constellation Capricorn, was apparently associated with Enki, and, indeed, may explain the epithet of the founder of Ariel, Elulem, which could mean sheep of the glittering waters. Yet Enki was frequently depicted as holding vases of flowing waters, the original water bearer or Aquarius, and he was certainly the god of fishes, and thus associated with Pisces. Astronomers are hard put to clarify how the ancient stargazers actually saw in a group of stars the outlines of, say, fishes or a water bearer. The answer that comes to mind is that the signs of the zodiac were not named after the shape of the star group, but after the epithet or main activity of a god primarily associated with the time when the vernal equinox was in that particular zodiacal house. If Enki landed on Earth, as we believe, at the start of an age of Pisces, witnessed a processional shift to Aquarius, and stayed through a great year 25,920 years until an age of Capricorn began, then he was indeed ensouled to land on Earth the purported 28,800 years. The reported passage of time also confirms our earlier conclusion that the Nephilim arrived on Earth in the midst of an ice age. The hard work of raising dikes and digging canals commenced when climatic conditions were still harsh. But within a few shars of their landing, the glacial period was giving way to a warmer and rainier climate circa 430,000 years ago. It was then that the Nephilim decided to move farther inland and expand their settlements. Befittingly, the Anunnaki rank and file Nephilim named the second commander of Ariel Elongated, whose reign time brought rest. But while Enki was enduring the hardships of a pioneer on Earth, and his other son Enlil were watching the developments from the 12th planet, the Mesopotamian texts make it clear that the one who was really in charge of the Earth mission was Enlil, and as soon as the decision was made to proceed with the mission, Enlil himself descended to Earth. For him a special settlement or base named Larsal was built by Enki digs deep. When Enlil took personal charge of the place, he was nicknamed Elimram, coinciding with the age of the zodiacal constellation Aries. The establishment of Larsal launched a new phase in the settlement of Earth by the Nephilim. It marked the decision to proceed with the tasks for which they had come to Earth, which required the shipping to Earth of more manpower, tools, and equipment, and the return of valuable cargoes to the 12th planet. Splashdowns at sea were no longer adequate for such heavier loads. The climatic changes made the interior more accessible. It was time to shift the landing site to the center of Mesopotamia. At that juncture, Enlil came to Earth and proceeded from Larsa to establish a mission control center, a sophisticated command post, from which the Nephilim on Earth could coordinate space journeys to and from their home planet, guiding landing shuttlecraft, and perfect their takeoffs and dockings with the spaceship orbiting Earth. The site Enlil selected for this purpose, known for millennia as Nibiru, was named by the Nibiru Earth's crossing. We recall that the celestial site of the 12th planet's closest past to Earth was called the celestial place of the crossing. There Enlil established the dur.and.ki, the bond heaven-earth. The task was understandably complex and time-consuming. Enlil stayed in Larsa for 6 shars 21,600 years, while Nibiru was under construction. The Nibirian undertaking was also lengthy, as evidenced by the zodiacal nicknames of Enlil. Having paralleled the Ram Aries, while in Larsa, he was subsequently associated with the bull Taurus. Nibiru was established in the Age of Taurus. A devotional poem composed as a hymn to Enlil, the all-beneficent, and glorifying Enlil, his consort Enlil, his city Nibiru, and its lofty house, the Ekur, tells us much about Nibiru. For one thing, Enlil had at his disposal there some highly sophisticated instruments, a lifted eye, which scans the land, and a lifted beam which searches the heart of all the land. Nibiru, the poem tells us, was protected by awesome weapons. Its site is awesome fear, dread from its outside, no mighty god can approach. Its home was a vast net, and in its midst there crouched a fast-stepping bird, a bird whose hand the wicked and the evil could not escape. Was the place protected by some death ray, by an electronic power field? Was there in its center a helicopter pad, a bird so swift no one could outrun its reach? In the center of Nibiru, atop an artificially raised platform, stood Enlil's headquarters, the K'air place of Earth's root, the place where the bond between heaven and Earth rose. This was the communications center of mission control, the place from which the Anunnaki on Earth communicated with their comrades, the Igigi, who turn and see in the orbiting spacecraft. At this center, the ancient text goes on to say, stood a heavenward tall pillar reaching to the sky. This extremely tall pillar, firmly planted on the ground, as a platform that cannot be overturned, was used by Enlil to pronounce his word heavenward. This is a simple description of a broadcasting tower. Once the word of Enlil, his command, approached heaven, abundance would pour down on earth. What a simple way to describe the flow of materials, special foods, medicines, and tools brought down by the shuttlecraft, once the word from Nibiru was given. This control center on a raised platform, Enlil's lofty house, contained a mysterious chamber, named the Dirga, as mysterious as the distant waters, as the heavenly zenith. Among its emblems, the emblems of the stars. The me it carries to perfection. Its words are foretones. Its words are gracious oracles. What was this Dirga? Bricks and the ancient tablet have robbed us of more data, but the name speaks for itself, for it means the dark, crown-like chamber, a place where star charts were kept, where predictions were made, where the astronauts' communications were received and transmitted. The description reminds us of mission control in Houston, Texas, monitoring the astronauts on their moon missions, amplifying their communications, plotting their courses against the starry sky, giving them gracious oracles of guidance. We may recall here the tale of the god Zu, who made his way to Enlil's sanctuary and snatched away the tablet of destinies, whereupon suspended was the issuance of commands. The hallowed inner chamber lost its brilliance, stillness spread, silence prevailed. In the epic of creation, the destinies of the planetary gods were their orbits. It is reasonable to assume that the tablet of destinies, which was so vital to the functions of Enlil's mission control center, also controlled the orbits and flight paths of the spaceships that maintained the bond between heaven and earth. It might have been the vital black box containing the computer programs that guided the spaceships, without which the contact between the Nephilim on Earth and their link to the home planet was disrupted. Most scholars take the name Enlil to mean Lord of the Wind, which fits the theory that the ancients personalized the elements of nature and thus assigned one god to be in charge of winds and storms.